It's Friday. What's going on, sports card hobby family? We have made it to the end of the week. My son is graduating high school today, so I'm having to get this out. I'm kind of having to throw this together, but I was thinking about this last night, actually, laying in bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to get some sleep. The brain is always moving. I'm sure a lot of you are the same. But I was thinking about, will eventually, for those that are kind of in the speculating space, not necessarily player collectors that are collecting very specific players or a set collector, for example, but I'm talking about more of speculators because there is a lot of speculation in cards and collectibles right now, speculating on different players, different card sets, and that sort of thing. Will we all, and I'm including myself in this mix, move off of kind of that next level Hall of Famer or that new prospect that's really looking the part, that's really kind of making strides and doing a lot of great things? Maybe that's Nikola Jokic in basketball. Maybe that's Patrick Mahomes in football. Just throwing those out as an examples of guys that have shown that they are most likely going to be Hall of Famers / all-time greats. Will we move into maybe a handful of players? I'm going to make a direct correlation to what I've seen in the stock market. No, stocks are not the same as collectibles. It's not better and all that. So before you dive into the comments and flip out on me, it's not at all what I'm saying. But you'll understand what I'm getting at when we come back. We've got our Friday shout outs, and let me say the newsletter, I've been really excited about the new weekly newsletter. It just dropped this morning that I sent out, and we did have the announcement for the $25 Card Capsule supplies winner. So some semi-rigid, some card sleeves. We're heading to the National. We got card shows coming up. You need supplies, and we have a winner that was announced in the newsletter today. So make sure that you join up, hit that subscribe. It's a free newsletter just for us to stay in touch. I know a lot of you are not on IG or Twitter, and it's more comfortable just to reply to an email. This is an easy way for you to just reply to me via email. If you get that newsletter, you can just hit reply. It comes right back to me, and we can go back and forth on email. You enjoy emails as well. So we've got Card Capsule. Thank you to you for doing the giveaway. On the Card Capsule site, if you use Sports Card Dad code, it's 10% off your entire order. If you're on Whatnot, a lot of you I know are, Wooten Sports Cards bringing the heat. Definitely check out Wooten Sports Cards. 12,000 followers, I believe now, are almost there. 5-star reviews. Wooten Sports Cards is the guy to check out. A lot of cool football, basketball. Everything pretty much sells out, so check out Wooten Sports Cards. JustCollect.com. You've got a collection. You're not sure how much could I get for it? Free appraisal. Just go on JustCollect.com, fill in some information. They will get in contact with you and bobbity-boo, boobity-bop. I don't know. Anyway, they will come back to you and let you know what they think. Also, VintageBreaks.com. If you go into their live chat on VintageBreaks.com YouTube, say Sports Card Dad sent you there, you get $25 credit towards VintageBreaks.com if you want to give them a shot. All right, will we end up moving into just a handful of players' cards? And I know a lot of collectors would be like, man, I don't really like this idea. I like collecting a variety of different players. And I'm in this boat where I've got a ton of different player cards. I've got, like I mentioned, I've got Johnny Unitas rookie, Bart Starr, got Larry Bird, I've got Magic Johnson, and I've got some of the new players as well. I don't have a lot of modern players that are still playing. Actually, I'm trying to think of who do I have that I'm not quick flipping. And actually, I can't think of any. I don't have any Luka cards left. I don't have any Patrick Mahomes cards left. I've got a few Derek Carr cards because he's my Saints quarterback. Alvin Kamara actually just bought a Contenders Gold number to 10 auto for him. Streaky autograph, but that's just a card that's very difficult to find, and it's from that 2017 year. The Mahomes version of that card is very, very expensive. Kamara, I think, will come out of this generation as being one of the all-timers, and I really hope that he's got a great season ahead of him under Kubiak. We got the new 49ers-style offense coming to the Saints, and I believe he's on a contract here. I'm just really hoping that he re-signs with us, given this new offense is exciting and so forth. So I hope that that all happens. But yeah, as far as modern players go, I'm not really collecting a lot of that sort of stuff, or even speculating on. I'm buying some Saints stuff that I like, as I mentioned. I've got a big Drew Brees collection, which, again, kind of falls into this category of Breeze is always going to be, second, third, fourth, fifth to some of these other guys. And really Tom Brady. Tom Brady is going to be the one. When I think about, okay, if you're a football card collector and who are you consolidating? If you're picking kind of that one player, if you can only pick one. I know vintage folks might pick other players, but I'm really just talking about as a whole. For me, I've already chosen Tom Brady. I have a lot of Tom Brady cards. I would consolidate, move into maybe a better Tom Brady card, kind of like what Joe Day did. My buddy Joe Day, Mike's Retro Trading Cards, great YouTube channel, but he moved a bunch of different Tom Brady cards, nice cards, into a big rookie auto, contenders auto Brady card, huge card. And again, I'm not talking about if we're collecting lower dollar cards for players that we like. I've got Bobby Hebert cards. I always make that reference to Bobby Hebert, the 80s quarterback for my New Orleans Saints, the Raging Cajun, slinging it around. I'm not anticipating higher values on Bobby Hebert stuff, but I'm also not spending significant money on Hebert as I have done, with some of the other kind of off players, Hall of Fame stuff. And I'm not spending huge money, but for me, I'm spending, a couple hundred here, a few hundred there, maybe $600-700 there. And I'm just wondering, for the people that are speculating, and it's a lot of us, will we end up just kind of moving into Mantle, Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady? There's other examples, but really kind of moving into the top tier, the top echelon of this. I think in the baseball card speculating / collecting world, this is tricky because that's the deepest collector base. But again, with a lot of those collectors, they do care about those values at the end of the day. Their families certainly care about those values. We're putting a lot of time, and in some instances, a lot of money into Hall of Fame. Let's just use baseball as an example. Baseball. Now, maybe a lot of those kind of second, third tier Hall of Fame players, they still hold up just because there's just that many collectors in baseball to where, that next generation of collectors is going to come in and they're still going to want Robin Yount or George Brett or Cal Ripken or whoever it is, in whichever one, Eddie Murray, whoever it is, whoever it's going to be, Joe Carter. But maybe not. Maybe that's not the case, and maybe there's just enough of those collectors that just don't care. But I just have to believe in today's world that where everything's expensive, look, rent's expensive, food is expensive, we're taking discretionary funds and using it as our hobby. And of course, you're trying to buy cards that you really enjoy. But I know for the vast majority of people, it's a combination of they're trying to buy cards that they enjoy, but they also want them to hold value. They're not necessarily expecting it to 5x, 10x, 100x, and all that crypto gains goodness type stuff where everything's going to 10x and 100x. That's not necessarily the case. But ideally, if they spend $100 on the card and in 20 years they have to go sell it because they're retiring or whatever the case may be, they're hoping to get maybe a little bit of a gain off of it because, of course, you got to take inflation into account there. So maybe you spend $100 today, maybe they're trying to sell it for $150, in 20 years or whatever. The point being is there is a care about the value at the end of the day. They don't need that $100 card to be a $1,000 card in 20 years, but the idea is you get to collect these things. You enjoy collecting them, and then at the end, you kind of get your money back or maybe even come out ahead a little bit, maybe. And so has that already pushed a lot of people into, Mickey Mantle's a great example of this because a lot of people have moved into Mantle cards. When you look at, I remember just talking to dealers going back to the Philly card show in particular and the National, and I remember them saying, hey, I sell 20 Mantle cards for every one Willie Mays card, which is wild. Willie Mays, I think, would be one of those that you would put into this top tier, the high echelon that folks would want to move money into. But it's clear that Mickey Mantle is one of these players that a lot of baseball card collectors, maybe they've said, you know what? I like Willie Stargell, but if I can sell off a lot of these other cards, kind of these other Hall of Famers, I can get into these 50s Mantle cards, or I can get into whatever, because those cards, those prices have moved up pretty dramatically over the last few years. Maybe that's just coincidence. Maybe it's just people getting in and they're like, oh yeah, Yankees great, I want to buy into Mantle, and maybe it has nothing to do with people consolidating into Mantle. And the same goes for Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan at every price point, whatever your budget is, you can get into Michael Jordan cards. And then I kind of wonder, is it better to get into the 18th tier Michael Jordan card than it is to get into the 5th tier Clyde Drexler card or the Chris Mullin card or the John Stockton card? Because we all do the thing too where it's like, man, Michael Jordan just so expensive, especially compared to these other great players. John Stockton, whoever it is. Look at the Dream Team, that 92 Dream Team. There's a lot of these guys that just never beat Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, and they have some really, really nice cards, and they're a small fraction of the price of the Jordan cards. The same thing goes with my collecting Drew Brees compared to Tom Brady. Drew Brees was holding these individual passing records and just got outlasted by Tom Brady in those individual passing records. I'm not saying that Brees is better than Brady, but in the record books, if Brees' right arm didn't go out on him, he had played another few years, he would have outlasted Tom Brady, I think, and he would have hold those passing records. Not saying that he's better than Tom Brady. He'll never have the rings and all of that stuff. When you look at the price of Brees cards, I'll look at the exact same refractor for Brees. I compare it to Brady's price. It's like 10%. It's like the Brady card might be 7, 8, 10 times what that Brees card costs. So as a collector of Brees, I love that because I can get great Brees cards. He's an afterthought, and so it's great for me. But then I think about too, I guess you could maybe make the other side of this argument of, is it better to move out of maybe some of the 18th tier Michael Jordan cards and buy into some of those better, kind of those other Hall of Famers? And what will that look like over time? Will there still be kind of enough niche collectors in there for those better cards of John Stockton or Chris Mullin or whoever it is, that it makes more sense to kind of like diversify down into those players? Now, what we're going to do here also, and I understand two completely different markets, not saying they're the same, all the caveats and disclosures and all that, but I think it's just interesting to think about, because if we look at the stock market right now, and this is not a new thing, but this is something that's developed over the last 5 years, 7 years in the stock market, and I'll throw up an article here. This is from January, but it's still the same today. 20 tech companies make up 35% of the S&P 500. So think about that. The S&P 500, 500 companies, 20 companies make up more than a third of the value of the S&P 500. Warren Buffett famously said he does not believe in diversification. A lot of people are like, what are you talking? What? Blah, you're blowing my mind. But the caveat he puts in there is, if you do study companies, then you can pick the winners. You can look at the fundamentals of the companies, you can look at who's running these companies, and you can see which ones are run the best. And he's chosen like Coca-Cola. He's over the last few years moved heavily, Berkshire Hathaway heavily into Apple stock, but that hasn't always been the case. Warren Buffett has not historically been a tech investor. He just hasn't. But as tech companies have evolved and grown over time, it looks like the big horse that he's running with is Apple. That's the one, if you look, I think it's the one stock that he owns the most of in Berkshire. But 20 tech companies make up over a third of the value of the S&P 500. And really, if you break that down even more, it's the Magnificent Seven, as they call them. And of course, it's the Microsofts and it's the Apples. NVIDIA with AI has come on. NVIDIA has absolutely gone parabolic thanks to artificial intelligence. So you just have these tech companies that have eaten up Google, of course, tech companies that really make up the most of this thing. And when you look at the sports card world, it's not a whole lot different. If you looked at, how much money is spent on Michael Jordan cards versus, Mickey Mantle cards versus Drew Brees and, Cal Ripken Jr., you're talking about a huge difference in the amount of money that's been moved into, these players over those second, third tier, fourth tier Hall of Famers. So I just think that it's a really interesting debate. Does it make the most sense to go into kind of the GOATs, the big names, those players? Or over time, will it make more sense to get better cards of those kind of that second level of Hall of Famer? Those guys that are just under, and have a portfolio. We use portfolio in quotation marks. But again, I'm talking to the long-term holders, the speculators here. I would really like to hear your thoughts on this because I think it's an interesting debate. Will we consolidate into a handful of players, or will we spread it out a little bit over more players and see what happens? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to join the free newsletter next week. Next Friday, we will announce a SlabMags winner. I'll be sending out a free SlabMag to one of our email subscribers. Guys, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.